A man I did not recognize sat at my Thanksgiving table. He said, "Mom told me I should finally meet my father." My wife dropped her fork. I am Frank Hathaway, 67, a grandfather. I keep people safe. I keep promises. When the stranger sat down, I did not raise my voice. I reached for calm first. "Welcome," I said. "There is a seat. We will eat, then we will talk." He had my eyes. He could have been mine. Denise saw me notice and put on a face I knew too well, soft surprise over hard intent. She had set a plate for him. She had planned this. "My name is Mark," he said. "Mom said today was right." "Family belongs at the table," Denise said sweetly, as if she were offering tea to a neighbor. She did not look at me. She looked at the thick envelope by my plate, the one she had placed there earlier like a gift. Before anyone moved, Eli held up a roll on his fork. Nora had a napkin boat in her lap. My daughter squeezed my hand under the table. I breathed and kept my voice level. "Mark," I said, "I am glad you came. We will make sure the truth gets told, and you will not be blamed for what you did not do." Denise poured water with a little smile that never reached her eyes. "Let us not make this dramatic," she said. "Frank can welcome his son, and we can all move forward." "Son," she said, as if a word could make a fact. We bowed our heads. I said grace for food and for courage. Then I served turkey. There is a right order to things. People need to eat before they can hear hard truths. We passed dishes. Talk tried to live. When plates were full, I turned to Denise and kept my tone gentle. "How long have you known about Mark?" Her voice stayed sugar. "Long enough to know he deserves what was kept from him." "Kept by whom?" "You. Life." She shrugged. "Me. I was 19. Mistakes were made. We are here now. Make it simple, Frank. Shake his hand and say, 'Son.' That is all that is missing." It sounded generous. It was not. It was a trap with polite ribbon. 2 days earlier, I had walked into the den while Denise thought I was at the market. She did not hear me over the video on her laptop. A cheerful voice explaining how to add a person to accounts, to make sure the money flows to the right branch of the family. On the desk was a notepad with a script in her hand. Thanksgiving reveal. Shock softened by guests. Notary arrives with forms. Mark signs. Frank signs, to look kind. Under that, a line that made my skin go cold. He hates scenes. He will fold. I did not confront her then. I listened to her rehearse phrases about fairness and catching up, and I was always second. I closed the door and went to the bank. I moved what needed moving into a safe account for the grandchildren. I called a neighbor about the garage code. I put a small DNA test kit in a box and set it by the cereal. I chose caution over shouting. Back at the table, I tried one more time to give her a way to the truth. "Denise," I said, "you could have told me privately. You brought Mark here on a holiday. Why?" She set her glass down with the softest click. "Because you worship your image," she said, and the sugar fell away. "Town saint. Free repairs. Hero grandfather. You cannot stand to look ungenerous in front of your brood. If I tell you to sign something in a quiet room, you refuse and give me a lecture about patience. If I tell you to do it in front of children and guests, you smile and sign. I chose today because you will not risk anyone seeing who you really are." "Who is that?" I asked. "A man who keeps everything in his name," she said. "A man who crowns the grandchildren as little heirs, while his wife gets the scraps. I am done living under your careful rules. I will get my share, one way or another." "By telling me to point at a stranger and bless a lie?" I asked softly. "By bringing a man into a storm to push through your papers?" Mark stiffened. "Mom, what papers?" She gave him a flat look, annoyed to be asked. "A few forms," she said. "Housekeeping. If he is your father, then it is right that doors open. If he is not, we can still show people what kind of man he is." You were going to use me either way, Mark said. He stared at his plate, then lifted his head. I came to know the truth, not to be a broom. There was a knock at the door, right on time. Denise smiled again, curving sweet around steel. Our pie, she said. Open up. Tom opened it. A woman in a blazer stood there with a bag and a stamp kit. Mobile notary, she said. Here to witness a couple signatures. Not today, I said. There will be no signatures on anything today. The notary looked from me to Denise and back. I can wait by the car, she said quickly and retreated. Denise did not blush. She did not apologize. She stepped closer to the head of the table and addressed Mark and my children, like a presenter at a meeting. Here's what is fair, she said crisply. Mark gets recognition and a path. I get access I should have had years ago. The grandchildren can share with someone who was denied for decades. And Frank gets to look kind. Everyone wins. No, I said. You win. You timed this to force my hand and poison my refusal. She gave me a smile that had teeth in it. You cannot speak against me without making yourself look cruel. That is the beauty. My son stared at her. Mom, this is not fairness. This is a trick. Life is a trick when you do not have the pen, she snapped. I have watched your father play noble while I counted coupons. I watched him build fences for other people and ignore the one that should have kept his money here. I am tired of being in the second row in my own house. For years, I said quietly, I have offered to sit down with a budget and a plan. You walked away each time because planning meant limits. You did not want a plan. You wanted a lever. I took out the manila folder, not legal language. Just pictures and pages that told a plain story. A stack of money orders bought with our joint account sent to a rented mailbox. A printout of the notary appointment titled Acknowledgement and Beneficiary Ad. Her script. A screenshot of the video paused on, Make it hard for anyone to say no. Denise glanced at the pile. She did not even pretend to be ashamed. Preparation, she said. I finally learned from you. You learned the motions, I said, not the purpose. I set a small box in the center of the table, 2 cheek swabs. We will not decide this by theater. We will decide what can be decided by fact. Denise, you swab. Mark, you swab. If I am your father, Mark, you and I will take a walk next week. I will hear your story. You will hear mine. If I am not, you will still eat here because you were used as a tool by someone who should have protected you. Denise leaned back, voice dipping low. What if I refuse? What if I walk out and tell everyone at church that you threw your own son to the cold? What if I say that the big hero would not sign a simple paper? You can tell any story you like, I said. The people who matter are at this table. She looked down the line. My son, my daughter, their spouses, the grandchildren close to their parents, and Mark with his face open and wounded, but not foolish anymore. There was no safe harbor for her eyes. She snatched up the notary envelope and thumped it down. Fine. Swab then. Let us end this circus. We looked away while they swabbed. Mark sealed the mailer with careful hands. Denise did it with a flick, as if a fact were an inconvenience. I stood. Denise, I said, you will take a bag and spend a few nights at your sister's. I have already packed it. My neighbor will change the garage code when you leave. On Monday we will sit with someone neutral and go through the money you moved. If you want to come home someday, you come back with truth and receipts. No tricks, no surprises. Her eyes glittered. And if I do not? If I keep my own counsel and my own funds? Then you will meet consequences outside this house, I said, still calm. And you will live with what you tried to do to Mark and to these children. She laughed once, short. You think I am the villain because I want my own life? You think you are a guardian because you pat heads and fix steps. You are just a man addicted to being thanked. I am a man who will not let you spend our name, I said. And I will not let you turn a boy into a prop. She looked at Mark, searching for an ally. I told you he would make this ugly. Mark pushed his chair back and stood up straight. "You told me he would fold," he said. "You told me to call him Dad as soon as I sat down so he could not take it back. You told me to smile at the grandkids so they would see me as a brother and you could say I belong. You did not tell me about the notary. You did not tell me about the money." For a heartbeat, something like fear crossed her face. Then it hardened. She took the small duffel Tom brought from the hall. "You will regret this," she said. "No," I said. "I will remember it." The door closed. The lock clicked. The room let out a breath. We cleared plates in a slow, quiet rhythm. When the coffee finished, I touched Mark's elbow. "Come with me," I said. 5 minutes. "By workshop." We slipped into the garage. It smelled like cedar and oil. On the bench lay a half-carved toy boat for Nora, a little thing with a blunt bow that needed sanding. I ran a hand over it. "When my father was angry," I said, "he hit something." I learned to sand. Mark watched the shavings curl. He nodded at the old photograph tacked above the bench, me at 24, holding a baby who is now my daughter. "I do not have anything like that," he said. "I have a box with an empty line where a father was supposed to be." "We will see if the line is mine," I said. "Either way, the empty line was never your fault." He looked at me. "What if the test says no?" "Then you get 2 things," I said. "A hot meal today, and a man who will answer the phone when you need a place to sit and breathe." He swallowed. "I have a boy. He asked me last month who his grandpa is. Tell him," I said, "that there is a man who will show him how to sand a boat." We went back in. Eli taught Mark the olive trick. Nora slid a napkin boat to his plate and asked if he liked cinnamon. My daughter put the sealed mailer by the front door. After dessert, Denise texted once. A line about me ruining Thanksgiving. I put the phone face down and poured more coffee. The kids pulled me to the living room for cards. An hour later, the neighbor's message blinked. New code set. I exhaled. Justice is not a shout. It is steady hands in a storm. It is a boy not used as a lever. It is a door that closes on a scheme so a house can stay quiet and warm. At that moment, I became sure. It is not only about my forgiveness or what is about to come. Soon, I am going to deliver justice myself for my family and restore everything with my own hands. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. When they all left, Mark stayed back. He looked at the toy boat. "Do you think she will come back?" he asked. "If she comes back with truth," I said, "there will be a chair. If she comes back with tricks, there will be only the porch." He nodded. "Thank you for not calling me a mistake." "You are not a mistake," I said. "Someone else made mistakes." You walked into them with courage. In the morning, I took the mailer to the post office myself. I came home to an empty chair and a table that had survived a storm. I am not interested in winning. I am interested in keeping the right people inside the house. The envelope moved on its quiet roots through cold rooms and sorting belts, while our house learned a new rhythm. It is strange how a family recalibrates after a rupture, how silence can be honest for a while, how a routine can bend without breaking. The day after Thanksgiving, I took down the folding table, wiped gravy rings from the wood, and set the chairs back where they belonged. Then I walked the block with Eli to see the neighbor's plastic reindeer. He told me very seriously that one antler was crooked and that he could fix it if he had tape. I told him the mark of a good repair is that it looks like it was always that way. "Like your steps?" he asked, small hand tucked in mine. "Exactly like my steps," I said, and I let the boy be my compass back to simple things. Denise did not call. She sent a single message to Tom. "Your father made a spectacle. I expected the old worry to rise in me, the one that tries to soften and explain, and found it did not. The worry had been turned into a broom often enough. I set it down. That afternoon, I made a list of things that needed doing. An honest list. Not the kind you make to feel busy. I labeled it house, people, money, quiet. Under house, I wrote change mailbox key, inventory tools, fix back fence slat, check roof after last wind. Under people, call Pastor Ruth, call my sister, see Nora's boat through, invite Mark for Saturday breakfast. Under money, freeze joint line of credit, call credit union, schedule meeting with mediator, document money orders. Under quiet, go to the lake, sharpen chisels, sweep the garage. I have never done well with idle fury. It makes men loud and sloppy. I have found that small tasks build courage the way kindling builds fire. Deliberate, arranged, no waste. Saturday arrived with a hard frost. Mark stood on my porch at 8:30 with a paper bag that smelled like cinnamon and coffee from the diner off 9th. He had cut his hair. Not short, just a little neater. He said it was for himself, but it felt like he had brought his respect along with breakfast. We ate at the counter while the house warmed up. He told me about the apartments he had lived in, which jobs paid on time and which ones paid in promises, how his son Dylan refused to wear socks unless they had rockets. He did not talk much about Denise, but when he did, it was a careful walk across ice. She said she wanted to make it right, he said quietly, tracing a circle into the condensation on his coffee cup. She said the church would see what kind of man you were if you refused. I did not come to hurt you. I thought, maybe I would look in your face and know I belonged. You looked in my face, I said. You saw a man, not a gate. He nodded and looked relieved without smiling. It is a small miracle to be treated as a person when you have felt like a project. I took him to the garage and set the boat between us. Nora had chosen the color, a red that reminded me of the apples we picked on school trips when my kids were small. I showed him how to wrap the sandpaper over a worn block so the paper would not tear, how to move always with the grain, how to let your wrist do the work so the shoulder does not tire. My father taught me that. He taught me many things I did not want, but that one was a kindness. We stood shoulder to shoulder, and the quiet turned from awkward to useful. Shavings gathered like snowbanks on the bench. Every so often his elbow would bump mine, and he would say sorry as if it were a sin to be close. Mark, I said finally, if that test says yes, it will mean one kind of work for us. If it says no, it will mean another. Either way, I will not leave you out in the cold, but I will be clear with you. I will not let anyone build a house for you with stolen lumber. He looked up sharply. I waited for the resentment, but it did not come. He had learned enough hard lessons to respect boundaries. I do not want what is not mine, he said. I only came because I am 46 years old, and I was tired of the question. He said it as if the number were a confession. I heard the boy he had been, waiting at windows. After he left, I drove to the church and asked to see Pastor Ruth. Her office smelled like old books and ginger. She listened as I told the story without adding music to it. When I finished, she leaned back, turned her wedding ring with her thumb, and said, "We will not let gossip be a weapon. Say only what you need. We will do the rest." "Thank you," I said. "We have children in this." "We do," she said, "and we will keep them safe from lies." On Monday, the mediator sat across from me at a small table and clicked his pen. Denise did not show. Her sister sent a message instead. "Denise is not ready to be ambushed." I smiled without humor. Ambush was the word you use when someone expects consequences. I went alone to the bank. I sat with Lorraine, who had seen me through 3 mortgages and 2 college savings plans, and I told her I needed every alert toggled, every transfer frozen, every account that could be insulated. She printed lists and highlighted columns. We spoke plainly. I like people who will speak plainly. "Frank," she said, glasses perched low on her nose. Do you want to remove her access entirely or just pause it? I looked at the photo on my phone. Eli's missing tooth grin under a sticky smear of pumpkin pie. Pause now. Remove if she chooses theater over truth again. And if she tries to open anything new in your name? Notify me and the police, I said. I do not believe in waiting for fires to burn. I left with a folder of small papers that told a large story. Protection is not dramatic. It is patient. The test results arrived 10 days later in a white envelope that looked like it should hold a birthday card. There was nothing festive inside, just clinical words, numbers, and a conclusion written in a sentence that made my thumb go cold. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. I sat at the counter with that sentence and a cooling cup of coffee and listened to the house breathe. The refrigerator hummed, the furnace clicked. Somewhere in the garage, a tool settled against wood with a soft knock. I am an old man. I have felt pistons ready to seize before. This felt like that, like something had been running dry for longer than I wanted to know. I called Mark. Come by, I said. He arrived with Dylan, who hid behind his father's leg until I knelt on the mat and asked him if he had any rockets on him. He pulled a sock up to his knee, blue with red streaks. We sat, the three of us, at the kitchen table. I put the envelope down and did not slide it across like evidence. I kept it between my hands, flat on the wood, in the open. It says no, I told him. It says I am not your father. He stared at the paper as if it could hear him, then tipped his head back until he was looking at the ceiling instead. His lips parted. The sound he made was not a cry. It was what a man sounds like when the only map he had is taken away. Dylan pressed his rockets to his shin and watched us, eyes wide. I nodded at Mark and then at the boy. We will make 2 lists, I said. What this changes, what this does not. He let out a breath that shook. What it changes? You will not sign anything I do not. You will not be used to open doors that are not yours. You will not be made a prop in a story someone else wants to tell. And what it does not. His voice was a rasp. You are still welcome here. You still have a man to call when the car coughs or the roof leaks, or you need to breathe in a room that is not judging you. Your son still has a place to lean his rockets. He nodded and covered his eyes with his hand. When he moved his hand away, there was salt on his cheekbones, a clean, surprised wet that looked like rain at the end of a long drought. Thank you, he said. I did not know if I had a right to ask for that. You do not need a blood test for decency, I said. Dylan climbed into my lap like he had always belonged there. Small boys do not worry about the labels on chairs. Denise called that evening. Her voice had found its sugar again. Well, she said, have you forgiven me yet? No, I said. The test says no. Silence. It must be wrong, she said quickly, breath catching. Those things can be wrong. It is not wrong, I said. Then people lied to me, she snapped, voice finding anger the way a hand finds a railing in the dark. Lisa from the dorms lied. She told me he was yours, Lisa, just a new name, and definitely not his mother. Denise tossed it like a shield. It didn't change the math. Paternity is a lab result, not an improvised story. She told me she was sure, Denise went on, words gathering sharpness, speed. We were stupid and young, Frank. You and I were on and off, and she was... Oh, never mind. It does not matter. The important part is... Stop, I said. The important part is that you put a man at my table to be a crowbar, and when he did not pry me open, you planned to use him anyway. I wanted him to have a better life, she said, as if motive could absolve method. I wanted both of us to have what we were owed. Owed by whom? I asked softly. By me? By the children? By the boy with rockets who did not ask to be an instrument? This is about more than him, she said. You have always kept me small. You are not small, I said. You are reckless. They are not the same. "You will come to regret how you have talked to me," she said, and then she hung up. It is a helpless thing to be threatened by someone you once promised to hold. I pressed my palm flat to the counter and steadied my breath. Then I went to the safe, took out the folder, and added the paper with the clinical sentence to the stack. Facts are not cruel. They are simply unwilling to lie for you. By Friday, the stories had started. A woman in the church parking lot told my daughter she was praying for the estrangement between a father and his son. A man I had fixed a porch step for said he heard I had denied my own blood because of money. Denise had given them a script. It was a good script if you did not know we had a table full of witnesses. I did not reply publicly. I invited privately. It was not about posting a word. It was about building a room full of witnesses. On Sunday afternoon, we set extra chairs in the living room. Tom came. My daughter came with the kids. Pastor Ruth sat in the corner by the ficus. Mark sat by the window with Dylan on his lap, small socks bright as sirens. The notary came too, nervous, unsure, invited because truth does not hide. Denise walked in last. She wore kindness like a coat she had borrowed. Pleasant, well-fitting, not hers. "Thank you for coming," I said. "We will say what is true. Then we will be done." I recounted Thanksgiving in the simplest lines I could. Who knocked? Who said what? Who brought the stamp and envelope? I did not add color. I did not need to. The color was in everyone's faces. The notary cleared her throat. "I am very sorry for my part," she said. "I was booked for a routine witness. I had an email from Mrs. Hathaway." She glanced at Denise. It said the party was ready to sign a beneficiary ad after a family reunion. Denise lifted her chin. "That is not illegal." "It is not," I said, "but it was ugly." I slid the lab report across the coffee table. My daughter read it, inhaled sharply, and pinched the bridge of her nose. Tom looked at me with a fury that was not hot, but cold. He has his mother's eyes. He knows what to do with a ledger when the columns do not match. Mark did not reach for the paper. He looked at his hands instead. I respected him all the more for refusing spectacle. "I thought he was yours," Denise said, a tremor entering her voice at last. "I did. I swear I did." "Even if you did," Pastor Ruth said, "you brought a man into a plan that treated other people's trust like currency." Denise's control cracked in a small, messy way, shoulders stiff, mouth thin. "I was 19 when I had him," she said. "Do any of you know what it is to be 19 and to watch other people make choices for your whole life?" "I was 18 when I married you," I said quietly. "I know a few things about being too young and still choosing to be decent." She looked away. "This is how this goes," I said. "I will not contest your leaving. I will not humiliate you in public. I will give you space to come back to this house with a receipt for every dollar you moved and a full apology to Mark and to these children. If you cannot do that, we will separate our lives. I will not chase you through courts unless you make me. Do not make me." "And if I refuse?" she asked, surprise and spite mixing like oil and water. "Then you will not be welcome back," I said, "and every door you tried to force will close." "On me?" she said, as if the word were a wound. "On you," I said, "and on the stories that make cruelty look like justice." She stared at the carpet, then at the ceiling, as if mercy might be written in the paint. When she found nothing there, she walked out. The door sucked air, and then sighed. We did not clap. We did not cheer her absence. We simply cleaned the cups, and stacked the chairs, and made the room ours again. January holds its own kind of truth. It is an honest month. It shows you what the light looks like without all the decorations. Denise did not send receipts. She did not send apologies. She did send 2 letters, one to me about reputations, one to my daughter about choosing sides. My daughter put them both in an envelope and mailed them back with a note. "We choose home." I met with a lawyer the same week I changed the oil in the generator. You may think those two tasks do not belong in the same afternoon. They do. Both are about not being left in the dark. I created a trust for Eli and Nora, the kind that keeps quiet and cannot be reached by sticky fingers. I left a letter in each child's file, written in block letters they could read without squinting when they were old enough. Money is for tools, not for trophies. If you use it to build, it will not sink you. If you use it to stand taller than someone else, it will hollow you out. I put Mark's name in a different place, not as a beneficiary, not as leverage, but in my phone under favorites. That is where you put people you mean to pick up for. I gave him a spare key. There are men who hand out keys like business cards. I am not one of them. He understood what it meant. He did not abuse it. We found a rhythm. Saturday breakfast at 8, coffee 2 sugars for him, none for me. Dylan watching cartoons on low volume, rockets always on his feet. He learned where the mugs were, which switch sticks, how far you can push the dimmer before it flickers. Familiar is the first step of belonging. One cold morning we took the kids to the lake that sits quiet 3 miles west. The surface had a skin of ice near the shore. Eli tossed pebbles to test the thickness. Nora held the red boat like a jewel. Dylan marched along beside her, sock rockets flashing above boots that did not match. We lowered the boat gently and let it go. It hugged the edge, then crept toward a calm pocket of water where reeds stood like old men. "Do you think it will sink?" Eli asked, skeptical. "It will ride low," I said. "Things that have been worked on often do. But if the lines are true, it will hold." We watched it hold. The kids cheered a little under their breath, the way small humans do when they sense something sacred. Mark stood beside me with his hands in his pockets. He leaned forward so slightly that if I had not spent a lifetime watching people before they fall or fly, I would not have seen it. "I told my mother I do not want her help," he said. "I told her if she wants to be in my life, she will need to be honest about what she did." "How did she take that?" I asked. "She said I was ungrateful, that I was choosing you. You are choosing decency," I said. "It happens to be here." He exhaled and put his shoulders down. I have come to recognize that movement in men. It is the moment you step out from under a weight you have been pretending is a coat. In February, Denise tried to access a line of credit using my name. The bank flagged it. Lorraine called without preamble. "She is at the counter," she whispered, "and she is angry." "I am on my way," I said. By the time I reached the branch, Lorraine had moved the conversation to a small office. Denise sat straight-backed, composed, a stack of papers in her lap. The manager kept his face arranged in that neutral expression men wear when they do not want to get sued. "I am on the account," Denise said, as if marital history were a crowbar. "You were paused," Lorraine corrected gently. "Unpause me," Denise said. "We will not," I said from the doorway. She turned, eyes alight like a struck match. "Playing sheriff?" she mocked. "Do you need to flash your ring like a badge?" "I need to protect what is not yours to take," I said. "This is the part where you choose hard truth or easy theft." "I choose survival," she said. "You handed everything to your grandchildren and nothing to the woman who stood next to you for almost 5 decades. "You always had a chair," I said. "You set it on fire because you were cold and would not wear a coat." The manager cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hathaway," he said carefully, "we cannot proceed." She gathered her papers, stood, and left without a word. I thanked Lorraine. On the way out, I held the door for an older man with a canvas bag of coins. He nodded grateful in the way men nod when they recognize another man having a day. Spring flushed the yard green, and then almost summer bright. I fixed the back fence slat. Dylan handed me nails and called them silver crayons. Eli planted a row of sunflower seeds too close together, and we pretended we had meant it that way. Nora painted 2 more boats and asked me whether boats go to heaven when they break. I told her heaven is for people and that boats get what they always wanted. to float. Denise showed up once, in June, while the kids were making chalk cities in the driveway. She stood on the sidewalk in a linen dress and said my name like a question, like the syllables themselves could be turned into a favor. "Frank," she said, "I want to talk." "On the porch," I said, "not inside." She looked past me into the house she had once moved through like a conductor, and for a second I saw something human in her face. Loss. Then she pinned it with anger. "You have made me a villain," she said. "No," I said. "You did." I just refused to applaud. She did not flinch. She has never liked lines that do not serve her. "If you sign a statement that you wronged me," she said without ceremony, "I will stop talking to the church. I will tell them I misunderstood. I will not sign a lie to purchase a quieter Sunday," I said. "But you can stop talking anyway." "It costs you nothing." "It costs me face," she snapped. "Faces heal," I said. "Trust does not unless you set the bone right away. We are past that." She looked past me again at the wood and the pictures in the hall and the bowl of peaches we had bought at the farmer's market that morning. "Does he still come?" she asked, bitter and young. "Your little project?" "His name is Mark," I said, "and he is not a project. He is a man." "You replace me with strangers," she said. "I replace schemes with chairs," I said. "You could have had one." She left. The chalk city stayed until the rain came that night and cleaned the drive in a way that felt like permission. By August, the legal pieces had been arranged into something that would hold. The trust was funded. The accounts were insulated. My will was a plain letter with simple instructions and a moral sentence so unmistakable even a man in a hurry would trip over it. If you break someone to take what is theirs, it will not stick in your hands. We had a party in the yard for Nora's birthday. Mark brought a cake he did not bake but bought with pride because he had chosen well. Dylan gave Nora a package wrapped in comic pages. Inside was a small red sock with rockets. He had outgrown that pair. He said boats need rockets too. At dusk, I took the hose and made a small river at the edge of the grass. The children floated all three of the boats side by side and chased them down the slope and squealed when one stuck and the others bumped it free. Mark stood beside me, hands in pockets, a man who had finally found a place to put them. "Do you miss her?" he asked, not nosy, not fishing, just a man asking another man to say a hard thing out loud. "Yes," I said. "I miss who she was when she was gentle. I do not miss being asked to sign my name to her storms." "That makes sense," he said. He found the words as if they had been waiting for him to come and claim them. For long months, Denise stayed peripheral. Stories do not die in a town like ours. They get recycled. I kept my head where my hands were. If I was not in the yard, I was in the garage. If I was not sanding a boat, I was fixing a hinge. If I was not at the bank, I was at the lake with a thermos of coffee and a view that has never lied to me. Autumn returned with its honest chill and its insistence on sweaters. One evening in October, we brought out the cards again. Kids on the rug, adults at the table. Mark knew the rules now. He had learned to lose like a man and to win like one, too. Small smile, eyes soft, no crowing. Dylan fell asleep on the couch with a half-built tower of blocks under his hand like a claim. Denise texted at 9:12 p.m. a photo of a church bulletin. A line about forgiveness underlined in orange. A sentence. "I am ready to come home." I stared at the words for a long half-minute and then typed a reply built on the only foundation that mattered. There is a chair if you bring receipts and apologies. There is a porch if you bring anything else. She did not reply. I set the phone face down. I laid my cards on the table. Tom won the hand and laughed the way men laugh when something in them has unwound. That night, when the house was quiet and the dishwasher hummed, I stood by the window and watched the yard rest. It is a job to keep a house safe. It is not glory. It is not applause. It is making sure the hinges do not squeal and the locks do not stick, and the children can run the length of the hall without catching a toe on something you should have fixed. People will tell you revenge is loud. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is headlines and courtrooms and men with badges. But more often, it is steady hands that close doors to thieves. It is proof in a plain envelope. It is a boy with rockets asleep on your couch because he knows you will still be there when he wakes. It is saying no to theater and yes to breakfast. It is choosing who gets to sit at your table. And in the end, when the wind lifts the corner of the doormat and the house settles for the night, it is not about winning. It is about keeping the right people inside the house. It is about a boat that rides low but true, a boy who learns to sand from a man who chooses calm over chaos, and a table that survived a storm because someone refused to sign their name to a lie. In your house, who decides who is family? Blood, truth, or the person with the pen? Share your stories in the comments.
My grandpa's worst really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.